Stand by to launch FanStream Sports.
3, 2, 1. Let's start.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to FanStream Sports. Nothing but pure sports.
And welcome, everybody, to FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. This is the Fighting Irish Daily Blitz, and I'm your host, Rob Fedoff, also known as RPT. You can find me on Twitter at PFedoff. For episode 80 today, as I promised in previous podcasts, I'm going to take a deep dive into the men's 2023-2024 basketball team. We now have enough people. I can't say that. I say this jokingly, but not really jokingly. We now have enough players to actually have a practice in scrimmage. We now have 10 players. That's great news. I say it jokingly aside, but really not. We only had 4 players for so long. We now have 10, and that could change slightly here and there with some graduate assistants or walk-ons in the next couple weeks or before the season starts. But I'm pretty set right now on this team to give an analysis. But before I get into the men's deep dive, I have some quick news on the lacrosse teams for both men and women, and also some football news as well. So men's lacrosse, women's lacrosse, to be honest with you, I really know nothing about lacrosse. The reason I'm mentioning this because both these teams, the men and the women, have a legitimate chance to win a national title this year, and they're in the quarterfinals both this week. And if they win that game, they go to the Final Four for lacrosse. So for the women, they play this Thursday, May the 18th at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time against Boston College. I repeat, the women's lacrosse team plays this Thursday, May the 18th, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time against Boston College. For the men, they play this Sunday, May the 21st, this Sunday at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time against Johns Hopkins, who I believe is a perennial power for men's lacrosse, and I think their women's team as well. I repeat, May the 21st, this Sunday, men's lacrosse, quarterfinals. They win this, they're going to the Final Four. 2:30, again, Eastern Standard Time against Johns Hopkins. So good luck to both the men and women's lacrosse teams. If they win, they're headed to the Final Four, one step closer to a national title. And I believe I looked this up right before the podcast. The men and women have never won a national title in lacrosse. They've come close a couple times. So it would be great for both of them to win a national title this year. Fingers crossed. Football news. Alexander Ehrensberger. Some say Ehrensberger, some say Ehrensberger. I'm going to say Ehrensberger. He goes by Alex. He was a 3-year player on the football team. He has 2 degrees already from Notre Dame. Very smart kid. Very hardworking young man. He came over from Germany. So it was one of the first, I don't know if it's the first international recruit for Notre Dame, but that was the big news when he did come over as an international student. He was an okay player on the defensive line, pretty much a project player. He has decided to, after he has graduated with 2 degrees, he's going to go back to Germany to get his medical degree and become a doctor. And good luck to Alex. He was not going to get above the depth chart. There's so much more talent ahead of him. As I said earlier, very hardworking kid, great kid, was great for the program, but it is time for both parties to kind of go their separate ways. There's so much talent on that defensive line right now, and he was just going to get buried in that depth chart, and it's time for him to go to medical school. So congratulations, Alex. Great career at Notre Dame, especially academically, those 2 degrees, and I'm sure you're going to make a hell of a doctor over in Germany. Also football news. Graduate assistant. Well, he will be a graduate assistant as of this Saturday. Right now, it'll be May the 20th. May the 20th. It's May the 16th right now. Antonio Carter from Rhode Island. You think Rhode Island? That's not much of a football powerhouse. It's not even a football powerhouse. However, with all the things I've read the past week when it was known that he was coming to Notre Dame, and just listening to other podcasts over this past weekend, this is a really good get for Notre Dame. It gives them quality depth at the safety position, and this is a quality talent at safety as well. Antonio Carter, safety out of Rhode Island. He had offers from Ole Miss, Wisconsin, and LSU from our old coach, Brian Kelly. However, he decided to come to Notre Dame. He has 2 years of eligibility. You think, if he does have a great year this year, Maybe he gets his master's at Notre Dame and then goes to the NFL, or he continues to develop over the next 2 years and his draft stock even rises even further and then has both the Notre Dame degree and goes into the NFL. Obviously, his best chance would be to come to Notre Dame instead of staying at Rhode Island to become an NFL prospect is what I'm trying to get at. But don't read between the lines, think, oh, it's Rhode Island. Everything that I've researched about him, this is a quality addition, especially depth-wise at the safety position, which Notre Dame needs right now. So Antonio Carter is coming to Notre Dame, and he'll probably enroll this summer for classes for his master's classes. So now for Notre Dame men's basketball, let me take a step back for the 2023-2024 season. Let me go. So, Nate Laszewski, he used up all his eligibility. Dane Goodwin, all his eligibility. And then Cormac Ryan could have came back. He left to go to North Carolina. And I don't blame him. There's so much uncertainty. I have full faith in Micah Shrewsbury. I thought that was a great hire. But this team was a disaster last year, and this is a total rebuild. Total rebuild. You got to go back to, I used to follow Indiana basketball back in the day, and when Kelvin Sampson got them on probation after the 2007-2008 season, that program was gutted. And I'm hoping our season's not like their season the following season, the 08-09 season. I when I was doing my research, I got to get my glasses out because I had to take so many notes. I didn't think when I said deep dive, this was more of a deep dive than I thought. That IU team, they finished 1-17 in the Big Ten and 6-25 overall. It may not be pretty next year, but I don't think it's going to be as bad for this upcoming season for our men's basketball team, but we shall see. So Dane Goodwin's gone. Nate Laszewski's gone. Cormac Ryan went to North Carolina. Robbie Carmody, who's part of that recruiting class, I think he may still have 2 years. I know he has at least 1 year left in eligibility. And I thought he may stay as well because he is so limited physically now. He's had so many injuries with the knee, the shoulder. I thought if anything, just stay at Notre Dame, get another master's degree at Notre Dame, and just be around the guys, be more of a leadership role. But, he was close to Mike Bray, and he's probably thinking too, I don't want to stay with a new coach. I don't think he probably has anything against Coach Shrewsbury, but why stay? See what Mercer has to offer, and that's where he's going. He's going to Mercer, but I don't think he's going to really play much there because he's limited so much physically. So then also, departing players was our recruiting class from last year. They're all gone. J.J. Starling, McDonald's All-American. He's going to Syracuse. Dom Campbell, power forward. He's headed to Howard. Ben Allen Lubin, another power forward. He has not said where he's going right now, but he's not coming back to Notre Dame. So every one of our recruits from last year is gone. J.J. Starling, Dom Campbell, Ben Allen Lubin, gone. So all that was left for the past 6 weeks to 2 months, putting aside the recruiting class coming in, all we had left was senior forward Matt Zona, 6'9", 242 pounds. He started to come around a little bit last year, but he hasn't played much at all in his first 2 years prior to this year. I've heard senior guard Tony Sanders, 6'7", 215 pounds. He's barely played as well. And then junior guard J.R. Kaznesny, I believe I apologize, JR, if I'm not. I've heard some other pronunciations. I've heard Kaznesny. That's what I'm going to say here. He redshirted this year, but he's barely played at all. Here's the kicker right here. Of these three players, Matt Zona, Tony Sanders, and JR, I forgot, he's 6'7", 202 pounds, needs to bulk up a little bit, but a great shooter. They have combined in 25 games last year, and JR did not play. None have averaged more than 7 minutes per game in a season. So these players are pretty much, they're not new to the program, but playing-wise, if they see significant action last year, that's going to be pretty new for them because they barely played the first 3 years under Coach Bray. So now let's get into the transfers coming. We've had 2 transfers. So as I mentioned earlier, we've only had 4 players for a while. We now have 10. We can actually scrimmage during the game. So if I look at my notes here we go. So forward, I may say Kemba once in a while, but it's spelled Kabba, and the last name is Ngie. I've confirmed that you pronounce it Jai, but Kemba Jai. He's from Penn State, where Coach Shrewsbury coached the past 2 years. And this was no shocker that he came to Notre Dame, but this is what I like about Kemba. 6'10", 237 pounds. He's got to bulk up a little bit, but we need that size. I know Leshevsky was 6'10", but he was more of a perimeter player. He did get some points in the paint, but he was a decent three-point shooter, but we've never had that power presence for a while now. Kemba's stats aren't going to blow you away right now, but he didn't play that much. He only played 14.3 minutes per game last year. He averaged 3.4 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 0.5 blocks. He did shoot 52% field goal percentage wise, but he had a lot of dunks. And he was more or less a role player for the Penn State team. And they were a tournament team. They won one game in the NCAA tournament. However, I love the size. And this was expected that Kemba was going to be coming to Notre Dame and follow Coach Shrewsbury. The size, I'll say it again, 6'10", 237 pounds. Obviously, he has to bulk up a little. So now another transfer from Northwestern, Julian Roper II, who is 6'3", 180 pounds, so decent size for a shooting guard. He was plagued by injuries last year, and Northwestern, they were a tournament team as well. They won one game in the NCAA tournament to get to the second round. He averaged 4.4 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game. And you're thinking, well, what I said about Kemba, I know he was only a freshman. Julian still has 2 years left of eligibility. And you look at his stats that I just mentioned, nothing spectacular. However, I've heard this guy has some various upside for his offensive talent-wise, that is. So don't let those stats mislead you. I've heard Julian can be a great offensive player. He just has to stay healthy. So what else here? He's 2 years of eligibility left. I've heard he's a great defender. I heard a very tough-nosed, hard-nosed kid, very mentally tough. We haven't had that at Notre Dame in a while. I will say Cormac Ryan was a hard-nosed, tough-nosed, whatever you want to call that term, type of kid. I think Julian Roper can even take that up even a step ahead of Cormac Ryan. Sorry, I'm getting all these players, so many players that have left, so many players that have added, but I think he can become even a harder-nosed player than Cormac Ryan is what I'm trying to say. So he has 2 years left of eligibility as well. So incoming freshmen, we actually, before Mike Bray resigned, we had actually 3 incoming freshmen. However, 2 of them, Parker Fredrickson and Brady Dunlap, they said, Coach Bray's not going to be there, we're not coming. So they were released of their letter of intents, and I don't blame them. Even though Notre Dame, to me, I wouldn't care who the coach was, I would have stayed, but a lot of those 2 players wanted to stay because Coach Bray was the reason they came there. And he left. So the only incoming recruit that stayed from those original 3 is Marcus Burton. And Marcus is the real deal. He's only a 3-star, and he's ranked 158th overall. But this kid's a player. He's from Mishawaka, which is right outside of South Bend, at Penn High School. Very talented, or very well-known high school for their sports. And he averaged 30 points a game last year. And his size isn't going to blow you away. But I don't care if you can average. I know kids aren't as big as in high school, but if you can average 30 points a game in high school, and if I look at his size, he's 5'10", 170. Probably needs to bulk up a little bit, but if you're that small, obviously he had to create his own shot in high school because obviously a lot of the other players are probably bigger than him too. But I see him being a day one starter. Great point guard. And even I've said this before in other podcasts, I think he's more seasoned than what JJ Starling was last year. who was a McDonald's All-American. However, I think J.J. Starling probably has a bigger ceiling than Marcus Burton. But right now, Marcus Burton, I see him as a day one starter and really have no choice. I mean, at this point, because we have so many new players, and you're going to probably want to put the most talented players out there. So Marcus Burton is the only original recruit that did sign with Notre Dame. However, we did get 2 more recruits. And again, you're probably seeing or hearing my pages of notes going back and forth, because the way this team is structured going forward, so many additions, so many subtractions, you have to keep detailed notes, and that's why I have to look at all my notes with my glasses here. So Logan Imes, 3-star recruit, the number 208 ranking overall for the 2023 class. He's from Zionsville, Indiana, 6'4", 190. And from what I've read and heard from other people, if you want to think of a equivalent type player, Cormac Ryan, who just left the program to go to North Carolina, very high-end three-point shooter. He committed to Notre Dame on May the 3rd. He had offers from Butler, Creighton, Drake, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest. But I can't say enough, a very good three-point shooter. And I know we saw that so much with Mike Bray, and I want to get more with players that can create their own shot. But I still want to see a three-point shooter that can knock down the shot when we need them to, especially if they're wide open. I don't know how well he is at creating his own shot, but I can't say enough. You got to have some good three-point shooters on the team. And I've heard this before, very equivalent to Cormac Ryan, who's a solid player for us the past 3 seasons at Notre Dame, especially during the 2022 tournament run. He had a great tournament run during that 2022 season. Next recruit, Braden Shrewsbury. Yes, that is the coach's son, and he's the 225th overall ranking, or the 225 ranked player for the 2023 class. 3-star kid, out of state college, Pennsylvania, obviously, because that's where Penn State is, where he lived with his mom and dad for the last couple years. He had offers from Xavier, George Washington, St. Joe's, and he was one of 6 finalists for the Pennsylvania Mr. Basketball, which means the kid's got talent. He's 6'3", 170, so he's got to get a little bit bigger as well. So he does have some game. I'm just always leery when a coach's son is on the team, how that plays with the other players, especially with, Coach Shrewsbury's brand new. His son's brand new to the program. How's that going to affect the current players that are, the current 4 that are currently on the team? The other 2 that have transferred over. I'm wishing him the best, but I'm just always a little bit leery with coaches, kids playing on the team. However, we need the bodies. So I'm a little bit leery, but at the same time, we got to have them on the team. We need bodies right there. So if we look at this, and here's the thing that concerns me the most, even though I know this is a total rebuild for this team, as I list the 10 players right now, we have 7 guards, 3 forwards. Too many guards. Way too many guards. We had too much with Coach Bray. However, with the 3 forwards, we have some decent size. Matt Zonas, 6'9". We have, Calvin Booth. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get to I told you, the other incoming freshman from the recruiting class. I'm sorry. Kerry Booth, 6'10", 205. Has to get in that weight room. 205 is way too small for a 6'10" guy. Has to get bigger. The number 56 ranked recruit for the 2023 class. He's a 4-star kid. This is a 6'10" guy that can shoot as well. Kerry Booth, you think too, he originally chose Penn State, but since Coach Shrewsbury's coming over, he said, hey, I'm going to back out of my Penn State commitment. I'm going to Notre Dame. And then prior to committing to Penn State, he had offers from Ohio State, Stanford, Texas, and Vanderbilt. And you think that name, I mentioned this in an earlier podcast before, but if you didn't listen to that before, his dad is Calvin Booth, who played at Penn State in the, I believe the late 90s. I believe he's around my age, around 46, 47 years old. His dad's the general manager of the Denver Nuggets, and he's out of Colorado, obviously. But my apologies. So let's just do before I get into those stats before. So we have two 2 transfers in Kemba Jai, Julian Roper II, incoming freshman Kerry Booth, Logan Imes, Braden Shrewsbury, Marcus Burton. So we're having 4 true freshmen right there. Then returning players Matt Zona, who will be a senior, but still has another 2 years of eligibility because of the COVID rule. Tony Sanders, the same way. And then J.R. Kaznesny, he will be a redshirt sophomore next year. So of those 10 players, what I was trying to get at before I realized I didn't mention Kerry Booth, Kerry Booth, Calvin's his dad. We have 7 guards and 3 forwards. And I know we can't really do much about that now, but over the next couple years, we have to get that more of a mix. We can't have too many guards. We had that too much with Mike Bray. I want more of an inside presence. Whether they can shoot from outside, that's an added bonus. From what I hear about Kerry Booth, he can go inside and outside. But we have to get that more inside presence going on. That's too many guards right there. So I mentioned earlier before, comparing like a total rebuild like Indiana Hoosiers in 2008, 2009. They were 6-25 overall, 1-17 in the Big Ten. I hope to God that's not what we have next year, but these players have not played with each other at all, as a unit, at all. I can't say it enough. I know we have 4 returning players if you include Alex Wade as a walk-on, but, Matt Zona, J.R. Kaznesny, Tony Sanders, they haven't played with these new guys at all. And I know we're going to have summer practices and stuff like that, and, obviously they're learning who the new guys are, but this is starting from scratch. This is a total rebuild right now. And I've joked, watch this be one of the greatest years ever at Notre Dame, because we usually always have all this experience coming back with Coach Bray teams. However, joking aside, I don't see that happening. The more I started looking at this, where I had to get my glasses out and write all these notes, here's the thing. You play about 12 non-conference games, the games right after Thanksgiving, during Christmas. So you got 12 games and you play 20 ACC games. So that's roughly 32 games. To make the, NIT, you got to go at least 500. So 16-16. If we did that next year, I would be ecstatic, thrilled to make the NIT and go 500. But the more I think about this, we have, of those 7 guards and 3 forwards, 4 are true freshmen and 1 is a sophomore. So of those 10 players, 5 are freshmen or sophomore, 4 true freshmen. That's a lot of youth right now. And like I said, I'm going to be as confident as I can be, but at the same time, I'm a realist as well. And you got to think, when they start playing games, there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm. Coach Shrewsbury, he's a very enthusiastic coach anyway. And the team's going to be very enthusiastic. How long will that go if this team starts losing, 2 in a row, 3 in a row, 4 in a row? Because after the Marquette game last year, Notre Dame, their confidence level, and I know the kids never quit, but you just knew they were going to lose, especially against a quality opponent that was over 500 or slightly below 500. You knew they were just going to lose. And I just don't want that to be with this team. I want them, let's say, even if they're on a 5-game losing streak and they're going to be playing Duke at home, we're going to get their full effort still. And that enthusiasm still going to be there. It's just, I know it's going to be there probably a little bit more toward the beginning of the season because everything's brand new. This is a brand new, fresh start. But as I mentioned with, this team next year, this is like, you got a slab of clay and you got to mold this team into what they need to be. We may not see that full potential. We probably won't see that full potential for another year or two is what I'm trying to say. So what I'm getting at, you play 32 games. If you go 16-16, you're probably making the NIT. But realistically, that's probably not the case. To go 10-10 in the ACC, that's saying something right now. That's saying something right there. But really, you think we're going to go 10-10 in the ACC? I think we went 3-17, which a bunch of players last year, our starting 5, the average age was higher than not most, but some starting fives in the NBA, because we had kids, 23 years old, for the most part, except for JJ Starling. So let's just say with those 12 non-conference games, we go 6-6. And the thing is that I can't really estimate that fully because the schedule has not been released yet for the 2023-2024 season. So let's just say you go 6-6 there, and then 10-10. That would get you to 16-16 right there. But let's just say I'm thinking more realistic, 6-6. Maybe that's going to be a little bit better. To win 6 non-conference games, that would put us at 6-14 as I'm looking at my notes here. So 6 plus 6, that's 12. I'm thinking at best right now, and I hope I'm wrong. So win 6 non-conference games, win 6 ACC games, and that'd be pretty, because the ACC is going to be a little bit better next year. So you finish 6-14. Yeah, 6-14 in the ACC. You're finishing 12-20. Is that right? So yeah. So you lose 6 there, you lose 4. Yeah. So if you go 6-14 in the ACC, I know that doesn't sound great, but for a team that is brand new, 12-20, that's not bad. I mean, that's what I'm thinking right now. And I know that sounds very negative, but I'm being a realist because the more I started going through this, where I needed my glasses as I keep looking down at my notes here, this is more of a rebuild than I thought. So I'm saying right now, until I see that schedule, and I'll do more of a deeper dive as we get closer to the season, we're looking at 12-20 next year, best case scenario. Now, me being ecstatic, and this would be like winning a national title if this team could go 16-16 or better and make the NIT or even make the tournament. But I can't say it enough. This is a rebuild, people. This is more than I thought. What else here? I'm just looking over all these notes that I've taken, and we can practice now. I can't say I say that jokingly, but not really, because we only had 4 players. I know we had some incoming freshmen, Marcus. Well, really, it was just, I take a step back. 4 returning players, 1 being a walk-on, and then Marcus Burton was going to come in regardless. He was not going to back out of his letter of content, or whatever national letter of intent, national letter of intent to sign at Notre Dame. He wasn't going to back out. So really just 5 players there. But here's the thing too, and this is what I was looking at to say for my one final piece here. So we have 10 players right now. But you got to think there could be some injuries here and there. I have to think Coach Shrewsbury at least wants 2 more people. That gives you 12. That gives you some wiggle room. So you're either going to have to get a walk-on or a graduate transfer, because I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but the last day for undergrads to transfer was May 11th. It's May 16th right now, so that's not going to happen. We can't get any undergraduates right now. So you're going to have to either get a walk-on. I have to think walk-ons are still, eligible to be a part of the team after the May 11th date, and then a graduate transfer. I heard today Seth Towns, for those of you in Columbus, Ohio, probably know that name. He was out of Harvard. He was the Ivy League. Would that be? Yeah, Ivy League Player of the Year at Harvard. A few years back, he transferred to Ohio State. That really didn't work out. He got hurt a lot, but he's going to be 26 years old. And I know Robbie Carmody suffered through a lot of injuries. So has Seth. Nothing against him, but do you really want a guy? And I have no inside knowledge whether he would be interested in Notre Dame or whether Coach Shrewsbury is interested in him at all. He's 6'8", decent size, power forward. I want that inside presence. I don't know if that would be really worth to reach out to give him a scholarship as a graduate transfer, because he's hurt all the time. He's 26. Yeah, there's the experience there, but I I just don't see that being an option right now, but who knows? But you got to think either a grad transfer or walk-on, that gives you 12. I'd love to get 2 grad transfers. That'd be great, but I just don't hear anything right now. I will let you know if that happens. But right now we have 10. And that's still, to me, a low number. Yes, we can practice with a 5-on-5 crew, but ideally for me, whether it's just a walk-on 2, add another walk-on, add another grad transfer, or worst case scenario, add 2 grad transfers. I want 12 to be my final number is what I'm trying to say. So I know I kind of rambled on a lot there, but I wanted to give you a really high-end analysis. Like I said, I had to get the glasses out to go over all these notes. But this is more of a rebuild than I thought, but I have full faith in Coach Shrewsbury, especially what he did at Penn State. It's just, now if we had, McDonald's All-Americans coming in, that may be a different story. But with all these, transfers too, I mean, we still have, even with Matt Zona, Tony Sander, Jerickis Nesney, as I mentioned before, of those 10 players, 4 are true freshmen and 1's a sophomore. We still have a lot of underclassmen right now, and that's where it's just, like I said, molding this whole process, this clay, building this foundation, it's going to take maybe a little bit longer than I thought. And let's say not longer than I thought. I told you next year, don't expect much. We're going to have to be very patient. But I'm thinking too, I just don't want to see this Indiana 2008, 2009 team. I don't want, because that team didn't have a snowball's chance in hell to win any games after a while. That was 6-25 and 1-17. And after a while, for players, that just gets to be, what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't want to say it's not degrading, but just very, you just know you don't have a chance in hell to win a game. And I said, I can't just think, there's a word I'm trying to think of right now, but it's just, you just know you're going to lose every game. And your confidence goes down the tubes. But again, I just don't want to go on and on here, but I want a team that, let's say if they're, I said before, 12-20, if they're 11-19, I want that team to be a tough out is what I'm trying. I want them to be a tough out against Duke, North Carolina, Virginia, Miami right now. I want them to be a tough out for every team where they're not giving up during the game. And I want that enthusiasm where I know we're going to have that enthusiasm early on, but I want to see that later on as well. So I'm going to shut up right now because, as I said earlier, this was more than I thought. I thought this was going to be a little bit rosier picture as I went through this and as this team became set the last couple weeks, but it is what it is right now. But I have total faith in the coaching staff. And that's another thing too. This will be my last point. I will have a podcast at some point on the new coaching staff because Coach Shrewsbury brought his, I don't know if he brought some players from Penn or coaches from Penn State, but I've noticed some hires recently, but I want to do some research on the coaches that he currently has for his assistants. So thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive into the 2023-2024 men's basketball team. It's going to be a little bit more work than I thought, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I have full faith in this coaching staff and the players as well. It's just going to take some time. So thank you so much for joining me for episode 80. And as always, go Irish.